While the Affordable Care Act has helped some Americans, the reality is for many the law is falling short. Over 1,000 counties across the country, including Monroe in South Florida, are left with a single insurance provider, meaning fewer choices, lower quality, and higher costs. I refuse to condemn my community and the country to a healthcare system burdened by ever-increasing costs, fewer options, government threats and fines against citizens, rampant fraud, inefficiency, and mismanagement. So along with my colleagues, I've been working on legislation to create a truly patient-centered healthcare system where every American has access to quality care. This proposal builds off the positive aspects of the ACA that have strong bipartisan support, such as prohibiting discrimination against women, allowing young Americans to remain on their parents' plans, and assuring protections for those suffering from pre-existing conditions. By working with like-minded colleagues from all across the country, since this legislation was first filed, we have secured $38 billion in additional funding to support the most vulnerable Americans and to bolster maternity, mental health services, and access to health care for those suffering from pre-existing conditions. For weeks, I had indicated a major priority for me was for the Department of Health and Human Services to restore Florida's low-income pool funding, which had been drastically and unfairly cut by the previous administration. These funds support important safety net hospitals like Jackson Memorial in South Florida. Recently, Secretary Price authorized $1.5 billion in additional funding, which will help compensate these hospitals and their doctors for care provided to poor and undocumented residents, and for the many millions who remain uninsured under the ACA. Today's vote is just a step in the legislative process for this bill, not the end of it. We have worked hard to improve the legislation, but we have a long way to go. I have received assurances that the concerns I maintain will be addressed in the Senate, and for weeks I have been in contact with several offices there to make sure we are working collaboratively. A major priority for me is to increase the resources available to lower-income Americans and those approaching the age of retirement. I will continue listening to my constituents, doctors, health professionals, and other experts to make sure our decisions are as informed as possible. I approach this issue with a great deal of care and sobriety. For me, this isn't about ideology, partisan politics, or presidential legacies. It's simply about building a sustainable healthcare system that empowers every American to make the best decisions for themselves and their families, and that supports the neediest in our society. It's about putting patient interests first and above the special and government interests that have controlled the healthcare system for far too long. Now, this process continues.